Welcome to another This Week in Coworking Discussion.
Hi everyone, my name is Pauline Roussel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Coworking.
And so my first question for you, what's one thing that the rest of the world can learn from co-working in Europe?
It's a very good question, and I think what's very unique, I believe, about Europe is this mix of cultures. We are many different countries who, I believe, approach co-working in many different ways. So I think for me, being in a conference today with people who, they come from Italy, they come from France or the UK, we also see that the understanding of co-working in their own region is very different. Some markets will understand it more than others. And I think that's quite interesting to understand how culture plays a role in supporting the growth of co-working in general. So being curious about other cultures, what can we learn from other cultures that could potentially work for our own? So that's something I think is very interesting about European co-working brands potentially for the rest of the world. This importance of cultural things, even just to go even deeper in the question, I think in events, for instance.
Yeah.
Community events would be very different in Germany than in France. And I talk out of experience because I used to run a co-working space in Berlin where if I would have done events late in the evening, it just doesn't work because people, they leave the office around 5. But then in France, when we were going to Paris, if you do an event at 5, everybody still works. So
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So that's why I think this cultural element is very interesting.
I stopped hosting events in the evenings because it hits 5 o'clock and everybody just goes home.
Exactly.
They want to leave. So it's almost like how culture influences community.
Absolutely.
I've been speaking about that a lot recently. I've been talking a lot about
On
how
LinkedIn, yeah. I saw.
Co-working, in order to foster community accurately, it needs to be unique.
Yeah. And adapted to who you have as members and what they also want. Because even if you live in a city, for instance, like London, where, you have so many nationalities in one space, sometimes you also have to play with that.
Wonderful. Alrighty, the next question for you. What area do you think will be the most impactful within co-working over the next 10 years?
I would definitely say, and maybe I'm biased, but community and experience, I think is really, really strong. What we've heard this morning here, around co-working becoming pretty much, it's not just about desks anymore. People start to understand much more what's co-working. So the differentiation is not so much more into amenities or desks because everybody's kind of leveling up. But then community and experience becomes something really unique and really the differentiator in how you approach and how you create experiences for your team, for your members. So I believe this is a really important component, and I hope that more and more brands will invest in their teams and will invest in that element of the co-working business.
Absolutely. I've actually spoken to some people here today who have said they've chosen their co-working space based off of doing trial days. And if someone will come up and speak to them who is in the area on their trial days, they'll know that's the place they want to be at because someone came up to them and spoke to them and interacted with them and engaged with them. So I do think that's sort of what sets a co-working space above other co-working spaces. What does your community look like? Do people actually like being there, or are they just telling you that people like being there?
To echo on what you say, it's the notion of feeling seen, feeling cared for. I think members really appreciate that. So yeah, I think that's where I personally want to see things going deeper.
Wonderful. And then my next question for you, I think co-working is so cool and you've done so much with it. What's something that you would tell yourself 3 years ago not to do?
Not to do.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say do not be scared. I think as entrepreneurs, we doubt ourselves more often than we should. And sometimes you have to make big decisions where you're like, oh, I cannot make that decision, or I don't know how to make that decision. So instead of not doing the things, I would say do not be scared and just go for it and see how things go. I think, for instance, the idea of the Community Manager Summit is something I've been bringing in my head for very long. And when we decided to make it happen, I was like, you have to just do it and then see how the response will be. So don't be scared, I think. That's what I would tell myself.
Brought to you by Syncaroo. Connect your stack and unblock your best people.